What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about cha-ching me. Now, don't let this little bastard fool ya. Behind that cheeky smile is a bloodthirsty maniac, ready to devour anything that dark fantasy will throw his way. Let's get into it. So the whole purpose of this video is just the fact that I don't really do tag videos and stuff. I just really stick to book reviews, but I do understand that now it's been like 6 months since I started the channel, and I haven't really shared a whole lot about myself with everybody. And the fact is, my channel has doubled in the last month, which is a huge milestone for us. Obviously, a lot of you probably came here after the discussion I had with Philip, Mike, and Petrik, who I'm very, very grateful to have been a part of that with those guys. It was a very humbling yet an amazing experience. But all in all, guys, this is just, a chance for me to just kind of explain a couple things about myself and maybe get to know one another a little bit better. Okay, so today is my birthday, and I asked the guys and gals down at the Discord if there's anything you guys might want to know. If you guys got questions, I'll try to have answers. So here we are, right? Ready to answer some questions. So let's start off with, my buddy Terry. And Terry asks, who do you see becoming your favorite Grimdark author in the coming years? I.e., who do we keep an eye on? Good question, Terry. So I think might be no surprise to some that, the name on my lips is Michael R. Fletcher. I can't scream that guy's name loud enough or often enough. He really stole my black heart this year, and he's really shown himself to become, he's becoming like a very prolific author as well. He's really dropping a lot of books. So just a fun guy to follow, and I just really like his style. He's dark and dastardly with it, and can't say enough. All right, next. Magic tends to be a lesser part of the story in many Grimdark stories. Is there one that the magic system stands out? Once again, Terry, great question. And once again, the answer kind of goes back to that author, Michael R. Fletcher, and his work with Beyond Redemption, the magic system that he created for the Manifest Illusion series. It's amazing. And honestly, that's a good point you make, Terry. There's a lot of times the magic system is really not a big deal about the Grimdark novels. A lot of times it focuses on characters. And I'm not saying that the Manifest Illusion series doesn't focus on characters, but all I'm saying is it was the one that's really brought something new to the table. It's the one that has an original magic system that is just so thought-provoking. And it's dark. It's dark and nasty, man. It's, belief shapes reality. And basically all the people that are crazy, that have mental illness or psychoses, they all have special, magic powers from these illnesses and psychoses. And it just is so dark and amazing. Many people need to read a palate cleanser between heavy books. Do you do this? And if so, what is your go-to? Man, I do need palate cleansers, but this is usually one of the reasons why I like to, shuffle novellas in. I still don't really read big old behemoth books, you know what I mean? One of the reasons why I'm able to kind of do a lot of book reviews is because I stick to smaller word counts, page counts, and stuff like that, because I know I can, really go get through these books. But either way, even after, 400 or 500 page book, I might want to read something that's only 100 pages just to kind of change gears, whatnot, before I jump into the next one. So yeah, I do palate cleansers, but almost, I would say 99% of the time, they're novellas. Whether it's sci-fi, horror, or fantasy. Fantasy doesn't really have very many novellas. Horror has they have so much, and there's a lot of great horror out there in novellas. All right, next question. What subgenres of fantasy do you like? So, I don't think it's anybody's surprise. I love Grimdark. All this came from fantasy, but realistically, I'm just a huge lover of dark fantasy and Grimdark. That's my comfort zone. That's what I love to read. Honestly, I've had a lot of struggles with some other subgenres of fantasy, especially urban fantasy, though I will say that Dirk Ashton's Paternus trilogy is really got my interest, and for maybe one of the first times I'm really like into some urban fantasy, so we'll see where it goes. That's one thing I notice is the more you read and the more you do kind of start to get outside your comfort zone, you can evolve as a reader. So I mean, there's always that chance that I might start just screaming about urban fantasy or something else. I don't know. But for right now, and the way it's been for pretty much my entire life, dark fantasy all the way. All right, the next question is probably going to be the most important question of all the questions, because it is, who is your favorite golden girl? Whew, such a hard question. That's like trying to pick between your kids. Though I have to say, because I grew up in the 80s and everything, like these ladies were actually quite a big part of my life. And when I was little, I was always a huge fan of Dorothy for whatever reason. That I loved them all, but Dorothy really stole my heart. Now, as an adult, it's so funny because I'm like Sophia all the way. But, like I said, they each had their own thing. Everybody loves Rose. You know what I mean? Who could not love Rose? And Blanche, Blanche was a confusing woman to me because I was too little to really understand, like, sex and all that stuff. So here you had a very sexual older woman and a very confused little boy here. But the stuff they did with her character was actually pretty groundbreaking. You know what I mean? They touched like subjects like racism and all kinds of stuff. Like applaud those ladies. Thank you for being a friend. All right, I don't know if you can hear all that shit going on out there, but they're like chopping up trees, going ham. I live in a very noisy place, so hopefully you can still hear me and not them. So anyway, show must go on, guys. All right, so can we expect to see the mailman again? Yes, you can. I actually lost my shirt, so I was kind of like postponing. I've actually been like reading some of the books that I was supposed to haul, so I don't know when, but probably next month sometime. You'll see the mailman again. And the next one. Loved your Abercrombie chat with the others. Can we expect any other collaborations or interviews? I certainly hope so. I really was, like I said, that was a humbling experience, but it was also probably one of the best experiences I've had since I started this channel. And I'm definitely like open to other tubers if you guys want to get together and have these kinds of discussions. Obviously, my knowledge is somewhat limited to like grimdark and dark fantasy, to some extent. So, but either way, I'll talk all day long. I'm pretty sure you guys have noticed that. So yeah, and also though, interviews is something I would love to do as well. There's a couple authors I would love to interview. I do kind of think that I need to grow my channel a little bit more before it's kind of worth their while. I don't really know. I mean, I could ask them, but either way, I would really love to interview, obviously, Michael R. Fletcher, but I would also like to interview guys like, Adrian Selby, Rob J. Hayes. I don't know. There's quite a few guys out there I think are pretty impressive writers and storytellers, and maybe they're not getting all the shine that they deserve. And I would love to spotlight them to whatever extent I could. Next question is character or book you most are looking forward to reading in the future. And so a character I'm really interested in seeing again is Garen Schlechtis from Beyond Redemption. She was our Hassbrand, like our pyromaniac chick. I know she got a lot of hate from people, but dude, I loved her. And I can't wait to see her again. That is definitely the one character I'm anticipate, their arrival. You know what I mean? I can't wait for that next Manifest Illusions book because I'm almost positive we will see her again. But as far as books go, I'm really excited to see book 2 by David Ragg. I can't remember the name of the duology, but the first book is The Blackhawks. Man, that book was awesome, and I can't wait for I think it's next summer is when the next one's coming out, and damn, I can't wait for that one. That one's definitely, I'm excited for. The next question is, what book surprised me most this year? Man, there was a couple. I would say The Gunslinger was one that just really kind of rocked my head, you know what I mean? Before that, Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer really blew me away. These were very cerebral reads, so I mean, that's one thing. I mean, once again, just like the book I was just talking about, as far as just kind of blew me away as expectations wise, was the Blackhawks. That book was just so much fun. It really blew me away. So, and of course, Beyond Redemption, because that really, I just wasn't expecting a book to, like, for me to fall in love at that level. I love that book that much. Okay, so the next question is, Grimdark fits the old fantasy stereotype of white men. You have recently read The Poppy War. Do you have any plans to review any non-traditional authors? You know, I don't really know. I mean, normally I just look for a story that I want to read, more so than like a specific author. But there are times where an author's, like, if an author is engaging and cool, that actually goes pretty far for me. So that's something. As far as just not traditional, I think her name is Rebecca Roanhorse. I have Trail of Lightning, and I know Black Sun, I think, is another book I'm interested in reading. And just, honestly, there's, like, I have to admit, I'm very far behind on female authors, so that's really something I'm trying to get into next year, is trying to kind of get through a bunch of these grimdark gals, or just, you know, whatever, fantasy authors that are female, because I think that that's something that I'm lacking. Okay, so the next question is about tattoos. I know it's from Lena, and I know John had some as well. So I know Lena was asking about my palm tattoo, if I had done it myself. No, I didn't do it myself. And this thing hurt more than any other tattoo I've ever got in my entire life. Ugh, don't do it, kids. As far as tattoos I've done myself, they're pretty much all on my legs. And for all you guys out there, I mean, that's what I do for a living. I'm a tattoo artist here in Anchorage at Body Piercing Unlimited and Tattoo. I recently got my license, you know what I mean? So I'm still, you know, pretty much a fledgling artist. So before you start thinking I'm Ink Master, just know, like, you know, the majority of my day is like tattooing, like, infinity knots, names, quotes, stuff like that. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm a tattoo artist, but it's like, it's still a job. But anyway, yes, so this one was done by my buddy Jeff, and it hurt like hell. And then I know that John was asking about my knuckles, because he said that he could read, you know, rise and fall. I didn't know what the bottom part meant. So it says rise and fall, empire. And the whole deal behind that was I was just very fascinated with the Julio-Claudian Empire, or dynasty, growing up. And that's like the first 5 emperors in Rome, starting with Augustus, ending with Nero. Yeah, that stuff just really fascinated me, as, you know, when I was younger. And if you guys really want to get into some grimdark, get into like Roman history, because that stuff is woo. All right, next question is from KXU65. And you, come on, guys, if you got Discord, you know who they are. All right, so they ask, why did you choose to live in Alaska? And what's it like living in Alaska? And would you move? So, yeah, in case you guys didn't know, I do live in Alaska. I live in Anchorage, Alaska right now. Currently, the reason why I live in Alaska is, like, when I was a kid, I was born in California, but I came up here when I was young. I went to school here in Alaska in a small town called Kenai. After I graduated, though, I left and I went back to California. But only, you know, a couple years into living in California by myself, I pretty much ran my life ragged, and I came climbing back to Alaska. You know what I mean? Because it was, you know, a small town. It was easy for me to get work. My family was there, and I just got comfortable, and I stayed here pretty much. What it's like to live here, it's different depending on where you live. Like, living in Anchorage is much different than living anywhere else in Alaska. Even small towns, but then, you know, there's also, you know, people that live out in the bush, and that's way different than the small town living. So really, where you live, it's going to be a vastly different experience. But one way or another, it's definitely cold. Winters are long and dark. Summers are about the most perfect thing you could ever get, except they are very light out. It's the one thing. Like, our lighting here is just all whack. But yeah, I mean, I really love living in Alaska because it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to. Anchorage is a little brutal because there's a lot of lawlessness here. It's kind of like the Wild West, where, you know, you could live in Anchorage and look out in the background, you see these beautiful mountains, and then you just look down and it's like you see trash and homeless people, and, you know, in the parking lot someone's breaking into a vehicle. So as much as it's got beautiful stuff, there's some ugly crap here too, and it grades on you. So there's the next question: would I move? Oh, hell yeah. I mean, I do love Alaska, and I'm not trying to move anytime soon, but I definitely, I like, the idea of new places and new things, new people, all that stuff. That there's a definite appeal to that. So the next question comes from Gregory LaPerche, buddy of mine. Says, who is your favorite non-Grimdark SFF author, and why is it Brandon Sanderson? I see what you're doing there. Nice try. Man, my favorite non-Grimdark SFF. Oh man. Well, Mark Lawrence, I don't really consider him a Grimdark author anymore. Like, I think he worked his way out of it fairly quickly. But if that's not good for you, I don't know. That's a tough one. But I mean, maybe this will help with your next question. Which non-Grimdark author do you want to read more of? It's not really fantasy, but Jeff Vandermeer. Jeff Vandermeer has all my attention right now. I read Annihilation earlier this year, really dug it, so I want to read the whole Southern Reach trilogy. And also my buddy Noah Warnock, he dropped off Born, so I'm going to get into that as well. I think I might actually reread Annihilation, just knock out the whole Southern Reach trilogy all at once. Not sure, but either way, Jeff Vandermeer is the author that's not a Grimdark guy or a fantasy guy that really has my attention. Next question's from Matt, and he asks, what does reading mean to you? Why do you read? Well, the answer has definitely changed. So when I first started reading, it was definitely more of a quest for like knowledge of the lore and the worlds and the characters in these books. Because basically I came into reading from watching movies. Most of my first books were movies, you know what I mean? And I wanted to know more. And that's really what got me into reading, because before that, man, I just, I kind of correlated reading to studying. So I wasn't really super hyped about reading until I really wanted to know more. Now, I mean, I still do want to know more, and that's one thing that pushes me, but also I just really love stories. I just get a kick out of them. They're very entertaining. It's just like I don't really care for watching movies anymore because I feel like my entertainment comes from books now. And yeah, I'm glad. Which goes into our next question. Have I always been a reader? No, I was very anti-reader, really. I mean, growing up as a kid, I tried to read some stuff, but I just couldn't really get into it. I think I read a lot of comic books at a young age, and that was really the majority of my reading was a lot in comics. And that's why I actually respect them a lot, and I try to champion them somewhat, because I don't like that people trash on them as far as like reading material, because this is something that kept my brain working in these times where I just couldn't get behind an actual book. So comic books are awesome. But yeah, anyway, I didn't really get into reading until after I was an adult, technically. Right out of high school, I started reading with Anne Rice's vampire novels. Like I said, I wanted to know more about the world, and that's really what got me into reading. Next question is, what made you start reading fantasy and fantasy series? So basically, this actually kind of happened by accident, because I was a very big Star Wars reader. I actually picked up Brent Weeks's Night Angel trilogy, and I kind of thought it was something else than it actually was. I didn't know it was going to be an epic fantasy with magic and all this stuff. I kind of thought it was like an Assassin's Creed novel. Anyway, so I was pleasantly surprised, and I was really caught off guard, because I was like, wait a minute, fantasy can be like this? It's like, it was really engaging. It sucked me in, and it was hitting me like nothing had hit me before. So that's really, and I know I don't really give the Night Angel trilogy enough props here on this channel, because I'm always talking about the Broken Empire, but by all means, man, the Night Angel trilogy really is responsible for what brought me into fantasy. Next question is a good one. What made you want to start a booktube channel? So, years and years ago, I kind of thought about starting one. I think it was like after I saw somebody shred Prince of Thorns, and I was like, oh, that's it. I'll start my own club. But, at the same time, I realized that was probably ridiculous, and nobody would probably want to listen to me, and I wasn't as well read or spoken, all that stuff, you know what I mean? Like, I really needed to learn or read more if I was actually going to, like run a channel. Fast forward years and years and years later, here we are in this, pandemic shut down. And it's like, man, I'm a kind of person that needs something to do. Like, I have to be like doing something, because idle hands are the devil's playground. And that really rings true for me. So it's good for me to put my efforts, my focus, my attention on something that I can bury myself into that's positive and productive. And that's why I got into starting this channel, man, because it's just like, dude, I can put a lot of time and energy into, and it seems to be helpful, and people seem to be liking it. So it's been very beneficial in this kind of dark time. And I'm not really able to go back to work a whole lot because I have kids and I got to watch them. And, it's just, life is different than it once was. And one of the bright, silver linings of this whole thing was the fact that I just got brave enough to start a channel. You know what I mean? Because I understand it's scary doing like starting this stuff. You're just expecting everyone to start trolling you or hating on you, or, maybe just no one wants to watch your shit. You know what I mean? Because that's definitely a fear of mine. But I feel like where I'm at right now, I'm actually getting quite a bit of joy out of my channel as well as my Discord. And that's really why I started this whole thing. Was I wanted a community. I wanted to bring all you guys out of the dark and just celebrate some of these books. Because yes, if you notice, I do cover darker material on my channel, as well as just a lot of books that nobody's talking about because maybe they're not popular. You know what I mean? And I think that it's criminal that some of these books have not gotten any shine. I could not believe that when I made a Snakewood review, it's the only one. I was blown away. That book came out years ago. It was like, what the So anyway, I'm just glad I'm doing the channel. And also, sometimes it might seem that like I'm like combating these other channels or whatever. No, I'm super glad that there are other channels out there with different opinions. I'm definitely not right about everything, guys. I'm probably wrong about most stuff. I just have my standpoint. I have my opinions. And I do think, though, that there are a lot of people out there that like me, though, as well, that have been kind of quiet because, for the most part, a different perspective kind of runs the show. Next question. What's your favorite format of books to read, and what is your ideal preferred reading conditions? So I'm a paperback junkie. I will read, obviously a hardback or on my phone. I'll do that, but I prefer paperback every single time. It's just the way that's how I read. To me, you know what I mean? Anytime I'm reading something that's not a paperback, I feel like I'm doing something else than reading. I know that sounds weird, but it's just that's how much of a ritual it's become, holding a paperback book in my hand. As far as conditions, man, I'm impressed with how crazy of a condition I can read in. Because, like, planes can be flying overhead. This guy could be chopping wood. People could be screaming outside. The kids downstairs could be freaking out, and I'm just reading away. But then there's always these weird little things, somebody may be tapping their finger in the corners. It's just like, what are you doing? So I don't know. Conditions, Next, I'd be interested to see a top 5 list from you in terms of favorite authors, books, characters, series, protagonists and antagonists, worlds, something along those lines. Yes, I am planning on doing like top 5 lists or like Grimdark guide lists. I would even love to do like casting, like if we did a movie of one of these crazy dark books, you know what I mean? Who would play? I would love to do all these kinds of videos, guys, and I do plan on doing them. Probably going to be starting next year. This year was really starting the channel, getting it off the ground, and so I wanted to read as much as possible. You know what I mean? I just wanted to smash out as many books as I could, just because I feel like that helps me kind of give you guys a better list. If I'm only reading like the popular books or whatever, you know what I mean? It's just kind of that's just like a surface level list, or diving in at surface level. I want to go deeper than that, and I want to try to provide stuff that's just maybe you haven't even heard of. That's kind of my mission, I hope. So we'll see. All right, our next question comes from David Decero, and you should go check his channel out. Also, Gregory, who I mentioned before, he has a channel as well. I'll put a bunch of these links in here, guys. Check out their channels. Anyway, David asks, what book needs far more attention and praise than it currently receives? I would say the one I would say right off the top of my head is Miserere by Teresa Frohock. Now, this book was written a while ago, and really it's a standalone novel now because there's never going to be anything written in the world because it just didn't do good. So there's no coming back. It's just what was written. That one book is all we're going to get in that world. I do think it's self-contained enough to be a good standalone tale. There are some grander scale things that are going to be left open, but damn, that was a good book. And for most people probably think I'm trying to push a psycho book on them or something like that, but you got to understand, like, Teresa Frohock's Miserere it's fantasy. It's fantasy with dark fantasy elements, Christian mythos sprinkled in. It's got parallel worlds, portal fantasy kind of stuff going on. I mean, it is so cool. Some people, like, when you start reading it, might get a couple, like, YA vibes. But I'm telling you, that was one impressive book from beginning to end. And I'm pretty sure it was a debut novel as well. So, yeah, Miserere, Teresa Frohock. So, next question comes from John from Hey Y'all Listen Up. That's another channel you guys should go check out. I've actually gotten to talk to John a little bit over emails and, whatnot. A lot of these guys I've gotten to talk to through Discord and all kinds of stuff, which is just, this is why I started the channel, guys. So anyway, John was asking, hey, how old are you? Well, today, John, I'm 39 and feeling fine. Yeah, guys, I'm in the last year of my 30s, before 40. Oh, lordy, lordy. Here comes 40. John also asks, why do you not do tag videos? Fair question, John. The thing is, I think I have a chunk of imposter syndrome. So there's this part of me that's like, why would they don't want to know. But also, I didn't even know that these tag videos were a thing when I started the channel. I just thought we were supposed to be doing book reviews. I didn't know we were supposed to be doing tag videos. But still, yeah, I'm not like super interested in doing the tag videos, but I do understand, hey man, maybe you guys want to know me a little bit, so that's why we're doing this, right? I know that they can be fun, and I watch your guys's. I don't know. I'm that guy. I still hang out in the shadows, in my sewer, in my dungeon, whatever. Kind of lurking, watching you guys play and have fun. Another thing, though, too, about man, it's hard for me to record. I live literally right next to an airport, a major airport, and a float plane airport, and then also like train tracks. I'm in a duplex, so I got kids everywhere. It's hard to record. So next question comes from Glenn. What's going on, Glenn? All right, so what are the origins of your infectious enthusiasm for reading and speaking about fantasy fiction? Well, I'm glad you asked, Glenn. Honestly, guys, I think this is where it's kind of cool because, man, I just feel like I was born at the right time. I was born in 81. And you got to understand, this is really, no internet, none of this stuff. And even cartoons were like really starting to kick off and be a big thing, but they weren't just like everywhere on TV. They were kind of almost even rare. Like you had certain times where you got to see cartoons. When I was born, The Hobbit and all three of the Lord of the Rings cartoons were already made. So when I was born, I had all of the J.R. Tolkien cartoon stuff. And this was very popular at the time. So right out the gate, I'm watching Hobbit, Lord of the Rings all the time. And then I grew up throughout an era that was just, dude, I watched, Beastmaster, Labyrinth. I watched Dark Crystal. I went to the movie theater and saw Willow. Another one that was really impactful for me was Ridley Scott's Legend with Tom Cruise and Tim Curry. Oh man, dude, that stuff just like it blew me away. It terrified me. It did all this stuff. You know what I mean? There was all these crazy good fantasy works on the screen that I'm just soaking up. And then just fast forward a little while later, man, as soon as you hit 90, 91, it's like the comic books were just on fire. This was like, dude, people that were doing comic books were rock stars. And yes, that's not fantasy, but it's still very much elements, like fantastical elements and storytelling. And I want to say really like one of the like really cherry on the top was when I think I was like 11 or 12. An Army of Darkness came out because that shit changed my life. Now, I know it's kind of sold as this like horror comedy movie, but it's a dark fantasy story, and it just blew me away. Here was this thing that had like this imagery that I could really get behind. It was dark and gritty. It was hilarious. You know what I mean? The hero was not really like the rest of the heroes. And just this was really what took root. Like that movie really changed the game for me. And, after that, I turned into a teenager and kind of went a different route. But honestly, that stuff, like that movie and all those other movies, really played a huge part, as well as my older brother Carl. Basically, I wanted to do everything that he did, and he was really big into fantasy. So if you're an older brother, please get your younger brothers into nerdy shit. All right, next question. As well as being entertaining, your YouTube reviews are objective and well-structured. Do you have any formal education training in English studies? No, I don't. I'm not actually that educated, and that's mostly my own fault because I just didn't apply myself that much. I am a high school graduate. I dropped out of community college. But yeah, I think I try to be objective because I'm a very emotionally charged person, and it's very easy for me to get like subjective, maybe like too subjective. So, sorry guys. So I think it's important for me to be objective just because I'm an emotional person. I think it's important for me to take one step back and make my assessment from there, because I also find that that's usually the more honest assessment. And I think that's what's important when I'm trying to relay something to you guys. You know what I mean? There's a difference between me being passionate and then something just being truthful. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to sell you guys a bunch of bullshit. I want to try to be truthful because honestly, I want us to all be hanging out and I want this to last. I don't think if I sell you a bunch of bullshit that you're going to hang out for too long. But anyway, thank you for the, kind words, Glenn. I try to be objective, but I'm just, hey, I'm practicing that stuff. Next question is, any advice you can offer new readers to the fantasy genre and suggestions on where to start one's reading? I just think that this is going to depend per person. Fantasy is, it's one thing to say I like fantasy, but because we know now that it's just a very broad subject, right? I mean, even the subgenres within fantasy are getting broad. So fantasy is a big thing, so I think you got to try to narrow it down from there. What are you looking for? Are you looking for politics? Are you looking for action? Do you want a darker or lighter tone? All these things need to kind of be put into play. And you can easily research this kind of stuff, or you can join, you can go on the Discord that I have for my channel, or a lot of other Discords. There are plenty other videos out there where to start. Personally, just one of the books for fantasy, I don't know, depending on what your like threshold for how much you'll accept as grit and whatnot. Trader's Blade is probably that's the one book I would give anyone that's struggling, or if you're like, oh, I want to get this person into fantasy. Trader's Blade. It's so engaging. It's got enough grit, but it's not too dark. I feel like anyone can read that book. And it's just like I said, it's very engaging. The first person narrative of Falkio really sucks you in. It like brings you in and like it just brings you along for the ride. It's very it's not hard to read. It's so effortless, and the adventure is like very rewarding. It's actually shocking how little work you have to put in and how much you get out. So that's like, you kind of want to look for stories like that. That's just one example. Next question is, any advice on note-taking? What do you do? And often I find that so many names, places, and terms can get confusing, especially the unusual pronunciations. Yeah, I have a horrible time with pronunciations. As far as note-taking, I used to be very chaotic with it. I've definitely, after running this channel for a little bit, I've gotten it structured a little bit. I do believe using the format of a lined piece of paper helps quite a bit. You know what I mean? Each line you can leave a note. It's like what do they call them? Like bullet points or whatever. Yeah, that's kind of how I do my note taking now. Each line will have something. I'll make a note of something, and then if I feel like that thing I've taken is increased, like in tone or like heightened, like if I'm like, writing like, hey, it's got good action, but then like a couple, couple pages later, it's like that action got even crazier. I'll put a star next to it. Stuff like that. You know what I mean? My note taking is not perfect. I end up using about less, probably a little less than a quarter of everything I take. So, you know, I mean, I'm probably not the perfect person to take note tips from, but that's what I do. All right, so we're down to the last question. Good thing, because we got about 8% left on this camera. So QM asks, favorite musical genre, songs, bands? This is a great question. Because it's outside of books. It can maybe a little... Man, my taste for music is broad. I love all kinds of music. One thing I look for in music is just is it hitting me in this, in the body? Does it make me want to move? Does it feel like it's triggering some kind of emotional response to me? Like, cause a lot of that stuff means a lot to me. Yeah, but as far as specific genres and everything, man, I'm all over the map. I would say, when I was younger, I really came up through that whole grunge period. So I really was into that kind of music, which led to punk rock, heavy metal, which led to hip hop. And I mean, I even lived down south for a little while, so I enjoyed a little country. Man, all kinds of stuff. And being born at the time I was, my parents' influence as well. So, I like older stuff too. I like really old stuff, man. I like Richie Valens. There's like Sonny and Cher. A Cowboy's Work Is Never Done. That's one of the best songs ever, dude. But then, and then we move forward. I love the punk rock, so Dead Kennedys, Misfits. Today I listen to a more like rockabilly style, so a lot of Tiger Army. If you guys haven't listened to Tiger Army or Nick 13, oh man, he's the lead singer. He does some solo stuff that's a little bit more Americana kind of style, and I love that. For any of you guys that are down to get heavy, my favorite metal band, they're like death, core, grind, I don't know what, they're super heavy. They're from Australia. They're named Make Them Suffer. It's like a younger band, and I love the hell out of those guys, but they are heavy as shit. But then, as well as some metal, I think that a lot of fantasy readers would get into is just power metal. And I know when they hear that, they think like, oh, but no, power metal is something that you would probably actually laugh at because you would think it's kind of comical. It does kind of have that like 80s kind of vibe to it. But power metal is notorious for creating so many like fantasy songs. One of my favorite power metal bands, Blind Guardian, they have an entire concept album built after the Silmarillion. My favorite song on there, Noldor. Badass. So yeah, another power metal band, Powerwolf. Man, I don't know. There's just so much. So much, guys. So yeah. Hopefully all of this was somewhat helpful or entertaining. Yeah. I'm certainly trying a couple things out. I've been noticing like my autofocus on my camera's been going nuts lately. I can't seem to get my audio right for the life of me. I'm just, hey, these are the struggles here at Slowly Read, So, but anyway, guys, I really, really, really appreciate everybody, spending some time down here at the channel, trying to get this thing off the ground a little bit. Yeah, if you guys know somebody that would enjoy the channel, please share them a link. We're trying to get this thing, trying to get it going. So, yeah, as always, peace.